If you are around age 42, I guarantee you that right now you are undergoing one of the most profound tests of your life. Stick around to find out more. Hi, my name is Jose de Castro, and I'm a psycho-spiritual life coach and an evolutionary astrologer, and I help people to overcome internal blocks and step into greater authenticity. So, what I'm referring to is something called the Uranus opposition. Uranus is the planet of genius, individuation, freedom, breaking free from societal constraints, and so forth. And at around age 42, it could be late 30s or into your mid 40s, but every single person goes through a certain rite of passage known as the Uranus opposition, in which basically the position of Uranus, the planet, at your time of birth is it has basically made a 180-degree orbit and is basically facing off from its position from where it was at the time of your birth. And so what this brings about for you is this brings about a time when there are internal voices or inklings or just basically forces that are pulling you into greater authenticity and alignment with your true core self that you came to this planet, that you incarnated in order to embody. And so I just want to talk a little bit about what that is, what that entails, and how you can face this time of your life in a way that empowers you rather than breaks you. So, when we face the idea of the Uranus opposition, I want you to remember something, that Uranus, the planet of freedom, is in this perpetual dance with Saturn, the planet of structure, of responsibility, of hard work, of societal control. And so, what happens is that earlier in your life, around your 30s, early 30s, around 30 years of age, you basically crystallized the responsible version of yourself. And this was at the expense of your authenticity, because what happened around age 30 is that Saturn made a full orbit and came back to its original position. And remember, Saturn is that planet of structure, social control, and doing what is expected of you. And so at age 30, what you may have done is you may have buckled down, gotten the job that is responsible, that pays well. You know, you started a family, or you did things that were sort of like as a result of feeling that itch to really get your act together. But what happened in the process is that you have had to jettison and to cast aside your sense of individuality and authenticity. And so those things that you always maybe longed for or hoped that you would become when you were more idealistic in your teens and so forth, you've had to basically cast that aside. But what happens at the Uranus opposition at around age 42 is that all of a sudden, now Uranus is also that planet of lightning strikes. It just hits you all of a sudden. You might be feeling all of a sudden, out of the blue, this strong desire to revisit those things that you cast aside when you became 30, when you became responsible. And they might be calling you really strongly. Now, what's going to happen here is that you're going to have that tension between the Uranus desire to break free and to become an individual, to become more authentic, to become more fully who you want to be. But it always will be in contradiction and at odds with the motivations of Saturn, which is that part of your psyche that is trying to tell you you need to stay where you are in your comfort zone, in social control. And so If anyone were asked, is it important to be one's self? They would always resoundingly say, yes, of course, you should always be yourself. This is stuff that we tell our kids, right? But here's the thing. When the Uranus opposition hits, you're getting these strong drives towards being yourself or doing something that is finally for yourself, right? But there's always a competing voice, and that's the voice of Saturn telling you, well, that's silly. What do you want to do? You want to do something that seems really childish. Don't you have a responsibility to others, and what will other people think, etc.? And so, yes, everybody feels like they should be themselves, but when faced with the Saturnian desire to stay in one's comfort zone and to appease the status quo and all the people around them, their family, their friends, what will other people think, etc. What ends up happening more than not is that people end up dismissing their own authentic drive as childish, and they just brush it off because they feel like they have to do the quote unquote responsible thing. But here's the thing. What is happening for you right now is that this is the test of a lifetime. You see, you weren't incarnated into human flesh in order to follow society's dictates and to be pulled along for your entire life, taken for a ride, basically, molded into what society expects of you. You came here with the intention of living your fullest authentic life. And at the Uranus opposition, you are being invited into that. You are being called or summoned into that. And so what that looks like is exactly what Joseph Campbell outlines in his Hero's Journey template. All movies, all major mythologies basically adhere to this template because it is encoded into our psyches. And that is the fact that we all find ourselves in the status quo, in societal expectation, but then there is a call to adventure that calls us to cross a threshold into the unknown and into our authentic self. But there's always going to be those threshold guardians. There's always going to be those voices that are going to convince you that that is childish, that that is foolish, that that is not what you want to do, because how could you make a living doing this foolish thing that you feel like you want to do all of a sudden? And that, my friend, is what I keep coming back to. That is the true test. Because the voice that is beckoning you to cross that threshold is the voice of your inner or higher self. I want to use my own life as an example here. At age 42, the lightning strike of Uranus hit me all of a sudden in the form of a dream. I dreamt that I found a skateboard on this forest path, and I rode that skateboard down this path, and I felt this feeling of exhilaration. Now, I woke up from that dream, and I was so compelled, I told my wife about it. But guess what? I was still dreaming. It was a dream within a dream. And from that dream, I actually awoke and told my wife about the dream within the dream, in which I found the skateboard and felt exhilaration, and that I woke up and I told her about it. And in the dream, I bought a skateboard. So guess what I had to do? The very next day, I bought a skateboard. I started skating in my 40s. And since then, I have been hooked. It was like this bug that bit me that has become so compelling to me. But that dream was that Uranian lightning strike that hit me out of nowhere, and it caused me to want to gravitate towards this childish seeming thing in my 40s. But guess what? In so doing, it has provided me with a great deal of just authentic fun. And not only that, but I have learned a great deal from skateboarding of resilience, facing my fears, persistence, perseverance, not caring what other people thought of me. These are all skills that I have actually integrated into my psyche and that help me now through my new life as an entrepreneur. The other thing that I ended up doing at my Uranus opposition was I got this nagging feeling that I need to do something that really felt more authentic to me. My teaching career was starting to get to a point where it was like pulling teeth. I felt like it was not authentically me. But anyhow, what I had that inkling to do around my Uranus opposition was to quit my job and just start performing. Now, I had been a guitarist. I learned how to play guitar. I was in bands when I was a teenager and stuff like that. But now this was a thing that I had actually originally wanted to make a livelihood out of. And I had put that aside to become more responsible. And now it was screaming at me. I wanted to go back to performing. So I actually, instead of completely casting my job aside, I decided I was going to go half-time on my job. And with the rest of the time, I wrote songs, I practiced my guitar, I honed my craft, I started a band, came up with a logo, came up with a band name, recruited friends to play in that band with me, became the leader of the band, went out, learned to sing. Before that, I was deathly afraid of even singing in front of friends. Learned to sing, faced my fears, ended up busking on the streets of Toronto in front of thousands of passersby, performing on stage, and getting that out of my system to the point where I realized, you know what, I pursued this. This is not what I want to do for the rest of my life because, to be honest, I really value my sleep. But what I learned through all of this was that I have the agency and the drive to actually take my imaginings and create something out of it and put it out into the world unapologetically. Whereas before, I was so timid and shy to even sing in front of friends. So what all this has taught me was the need to be authentic. And so what happened? When the true test came for me, I can say beyond the shadow of a doubt, when COVID hit and all of that crazy propaganda came through and all of that misleading information that was trying to get people to poke themselves with experimental vaccines, I had enough agency within myself to stand up and say, no way, I am not doing this. And I know for a fact that if I did not start practicing my own sense of individuality and autonomy and individuation prior to that, then I may have succumbed thinking that I don't have what it takes to break out and actually leave this job and start my own thing. But thankfully, because I listened to the voice of Uranus in that situation, I was able, when it came down to it, to break free and to step into entrepreneurship. And here I am. And I have to say that I'm not making the same amount of money as I did when I was a teacher. I don't have benefits like I did when I was a teacher. However, I have learned that I actually can have faith in myself. I can initiate the drive and the willpower to create a life of my choosing, to put into structure that which I can imagine for myself and that which represents my true authentic self, my core morality. And so all of this is not to brag or anything like that. It's just to encourage you that if you are in a Uranus opposition, if you are around age 42 right now, and you're feeling that itch, you're feeling like, oh my God, I feel like I want to do this, but I feel scared. I feel like I have to leave, my comfort zone in order to do this. I don't know if I'll be financially supported. I have a family. Trust me, I know. I have 2 little kids. I have a wife who also had to leave her job at the same time as I did. And we have been on our own individual path that has been uncertain, very scary. But if you ask either one of us if we would change anything, we would both tell you the same thing, and that is absolutely not. Because the level of growth that has occurred for me and for my wife over the course of these years has been so tremendous that it is completely worth it. And so I want you to see this Uranus opposition as a rite of passage. Now, rites of passage are things that are sorely missing and absent in our culture. We basically poke around in the dark and we don't know why we are motivated to do certain things. And, we basically stumble through the dark. What evolutionary astrology has done for me is that through the uncertainty of what I've been going through, it has been like it has shown me all of the order, the cosmic order that underlies it. And it's shown me that what I faced and am facing is directly, exactly, precisely where I'm supposed to be to fulfill my potentials for this life. So if you are facing that scary Uranus opposition and you're vacillating between whether or not to stay in the status quo and the comfort zone or to strike out, to do your own thing, to be your own boss, and if you want some clarity as to what exactly is going on for you, what you want to do is book with me a free 15-minute discovery call so we can talk about how one of my evolutionary astrology readings can actually help you gain clarity as to what exactly is happening for you and what are your potentials. Listen, it's not going to be easy. To step past that threshold takes a lot of faith. But if you have faith in your vision, in yourself, and in your true self, your higher self, and faith in the universe, know this: it will be challenging, but if you can insist through your actions on the type of person that you choose to be, the universe will have no other recourse but to adjust itself and mold itself around who you are and conspire to give you success on your path.